Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to go over the timeline activity that was part of last week's assignments. For those of you who are not in class, this is just a quick summary if you wanted to know what some of these answers were. So you opened up your Google Slides, you saw the first set had some directions, you were working at your own pace going through each of the slides. There are some keywords that are really important to read. This week we're talking about timeline, chronological order. I saw a lot of you put these things in chronological order. You just had to drag these boxes, so elementary school is first, middle school is second, and high school is third. Same thing with the next slide. We know that our school starts with homeroom, then we have snack, and then we have lunch. Slide 6, it depended on your schedule. You put your classes in the correct order. And then for number 7, you got to make up any 3 items as long as you put them in chronological order. Also in the slides were included a short video. It's important for you to watch this video. It gives you some tips, tricks about timelines, talks about intervals and how to set up timelines. Then you had this list of events. If you want to check to make sure that your events are in correct order, you can use this one. You can pause it to double check your work versus this one. I included some lines just to point. I know these two things are kind of stuck between 2010 and 2015. So I just put some lines to point to where it goes. In the reading a timeline slides, you had this timeline as the George Washington timeline with a few questions. So this first one was how many years between George Washington's birth and the first hot air balloon ride? You can find those two events. It's important to look closely. It might help to put this full screen to zoom in. George Washington's birth was in 1732. Just got that number up here. First hot air balloon ride over here, 1783. So in this box, you should have 51 years. The second question about the George Washington timeline asks how many years after the start of the Revolutionary War, event here, 1775, did workers begin building the White House? It's here, 1792. So if we find the difference between those years, 17 years after. And the last question was not figuring out the difference between years, but which event happened on this timeline after Washington died, but before Lincoln was born. So if I see all of these events about Washington, he died in 1799. Lincoln was born here, 1809. Between those two events, you have the first train was made. That would be in this box. The timeline slides ended with just a little bit of information about the BC or BCE and AD or CE labels on a timeline. We're going to use that when we talk about our ancient history unit towards the end of the year. This is an example. You didn't have to do anything with this timeline, but it gave you some important pieces of information about how these numbers go down as time goes along. These numbers go up as time goes along. And finally, these are some challenge questions. How many years ago was Cleopatra's birth? Because Cleopatra is born in the BC years and we are in the AD years, you had to add these two numbers. That was a challenge for a lot of people. This should be 2090. 69 BC, or 69 years here, plus 2021 years here. So 2090 years. This one was a subtraction question. How many years are between the pyramids of Giza and Cleopatra's birth? Well, the pyramids started to be built approximately 2550 BC. We subtract the 69 BC for Cleopatra's birth, and we end up with 2481. If you had questions or you wanted to ask something specific, feel free to send me an email. Otherwise, we're going to try new timeline information again this week.